Good morning, everyone. My name is Amoye Henry, joining you from Toronto, Canada. Excited to get into this panel discussion today called Going Global. I first actually wanted to give our panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm just to confirm, are people participating like outside of us right now?
No, I believe this is the last session. No, actually, there are two more sessions running. So this is the third session running.
Okay, are the participants already here, like the audience?
So not yet. It should have gone live on the platform. So they will be joining any moment now.
Okay, so I won't say anything yet. I'll just wait for now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I will say hello to Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello to Andrea. Hi, nice to meet you.
Hello, Jennifer.
And
Hi, how are you?
Who's saying that? I didn't catch that voice, but if you were asking me how I am doing, I am great. And I'm really happy to be here. Nice to meet you all.
As am I. Looking forward to this.
Yes, me too.
Very much so.
Yes. And Amoye will do a great job because she's fantastic. We're a fan of Amoye.
Well, you know, your reputation precedes you. All I've been doing is reading about you. You've got quite a bit going on right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Congratulations.
Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Toronto.
You're in Toronto as well. Oh my gosh.
We've got the locals.
We do. It's a Toronto connection. Love it.
Toronto connection. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, so I'm probably going to start off by asking you guys to kind of introduce yourselves and the work that you're doing. And then I think we all, have different questions that we'll go through. So I think, Jennifer, you had proposed a couple and that was really interesting. So if that's okay, I might use the questions that you've brought forward.
I think that Raj brought questions forward. I brought one in and it wasn't a great one. Raj had some really good ones though.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we can definitely kind of use those ones and kind of see where the conversation leads us. I'm hoping that it's more conversational than just rigid, because I'm sure people are all like zoomed out at this point from all of the sessions. So hopefully we'll just be able to create something that's insightful, conversational, and leaves people, thinking, right? So very, very exciting stuff.
I'm going to cut you off there because I can see that we have gone live. They can see you, but they can't hear you yet.
Okay.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Sorry for being late. I still can't get the lighting right. I'm either too dark or too light. So apologies. This is probably the best I'm gonna do.
Looks
That's okay. Welcome, Raj.
Welcome,
Thank
Raj.
you.
Such a pleasure to connect with you. I'm Amoye. I'll be moderating the panel for today.
Ah, great. Fantastic. You like curry?
Yes. How did you know? I'm joking.
I believe our audio is now on, everyone.
Pardon?
Our audio is now live and we are
Okay,
now.
our audio is live. Okay.
Perfect.
So how are we going to do this?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Good afternoon, everyone joining us from around the world. You are at Going Global, one of the last sessions at the Texposition Summit. I hope everyone's been enjoying this, ride for the past few days and have learned so much, lots of insights. Today, we're joined by global leaders. I'm personally from Toronto, Canada, and we have a couple of our panelists that also live in Canada as well. So looking forward to hearing, some of their insights and their experiences in leadership and, what it is to really go global in the support of African tech. So I'll start off today by asking our lovely esteemed panels to go ahead and introduce themselves and really conclude your introduction by talking about how you yourself, plan to, support African tech. I start with hearing from you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Amoye. My name is Jennifer Davidson. I am a technology and IP lawyer in Toronto, Canada. And I suppose that my position here is to help startups think about moving into foreign jurisdictions, think about the IP that's involved and should be involved and the considerations that should be involved, and how to grow your business.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Andrea, I'd love to hear from you. Your introduction.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andria Barrett. I'm the president of the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. We're a national nonprofit organization right across the country of Canada. Our goal and our mission and our purpose is to encourage economic empowerment through entrepreneurship in the Black community. And what makes us unique as a Black Chamber of Commerce is we promote trade missions. So we believe in a global economy. So encouraging businesses in Canada and abroad to work together, to use each other as a part of their supply chain. And we encourage and work with entrepreneurs here that want to do work on the continent and encourage those on the continent to do work with us Canadians here. So very nice to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Just diving into the emerging markets is amazing, and to be a leader, an institution that's leading in that is something that we haven't seen in Canada from the Black community. So thank you so much for your leadership. Raj, very much looking forward to hearing from you.
So I went global a long time ago, right? So I was born in Kuala Lumpur. Well, in fact, not in Kuala Lumpur, a small town called Slim River in Malaysia. Okay. And then I came to the UK to study, and I stayed. And I've been traveling around the world advising people in my day job, which is as a lawyer at Dentons. And then the last 20 years or so, I've been an angel investor. Started off investing in the UK and Europe, and then the last 5 years have been investing in Africa. I've got a portfolio of about 30 odd companies mixed between Africa and UK, all sorts of mostly tech companies, but some FMCG companies as well. So really excited about the possibilities and the growth potential on the continent, and super excited I feel we're at an inflection point, right? I think notwithstanding COVID's going to have an impact on economies in Africa, I still feel that this sector with tech and technology and tech-enabled businesses, that this is actually going to be a great time to invest, to grow these companies across the continent.
Absolutely. That is such a good observation. And I think it's something that's been echoed throughout the past few days and even the past few months, right? So amazing. So I would like to dive right in, if that's okay with you guys, because I want to have a really juicy conversation today. Jennifer, in your opinion, your experience, what are some key considerations or some key things that founders should identify or really make it a point to focus on when building a business for a global audience, especially founders from emerging markets that are sort of on the come up and may not necessarily have all the structures and infrastructure in place to really go big, but they have the idea, they have the vehicle?
It's a great question, Amoye, and I could probably answer it over the course of a couple of hours, but I'm going to try and give you an answer that covers just the headlines in a couple of minutes. From the moment you start, I think that you should be thinking about your IP. That means if you're just a couple of founders, you should have an agreement in place that covers you for IP ownership. Who owns what? What happens if you no longer continue to work together? Who takes that IP away? And as your business continues to grow, you're going to want to think about things like making sure your employment agreements also have the ownership of IP and assignments of IP. That should be done on a periodic basis. So IP cannot be assigned before it is made. So as you're developing and as you're making, you're going to want to get those IP assignments in place. And the proof of those ownerships are going to help you also with your investing and other things as you move forward. You're also going to want to think about jurisdictions and making sure that when you start filing for your IP protections, you're doing so in a place that is going to allow you to have the connections to file in other jurisdictions and have your original priority dates and other things recognized. And then as you move into the other jurisdictions, you're going to want to look into their IP systems and making sure that their IP systems are going to give you the kind of enforcement and protections that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's actually very helpful. And I think sometimes, especially in this COVID time, right? So we have all these businesses that may have relevant, we're abiding by the regulations of our local jurisdictions or what's expected of us, for our local governments, but when we want to expand into other markets, there's a whole set of rules and a whole new ball game essentially. And so I love how you mentioned that we need to be thinking about that. We need to be mindful of, what is required, what's standard in other jurisdictions. So thank you so much for sharing that. Raj, I'd love to, to go into this conversation with you about capital. And as you've expressed that you are sort of an angel investor and heavily invested in businesses in both Europe and Africa, what, in your opinion, do you need in addition to money? Because money's everything, money's great. But in addition to money, what do you believe is needed to be able to expand beyond, a certain market for our founders who are tapped in today from, potentially Ghana or Nigeria or South Africa? What does that look like?
So I think the first thing I would say is that, it's exciting to be a global company. But I think that my advice to all my founders is that first conquer your local market, right? Because until you're king of your local market, that's really that's the place you need to focus on, right? I mean, you can dabble a little bit in other markets just to sort of see, but the problem is that those kind of things often distract you from actually trying to focus. And this game is about focus, right? It's actually about execution, focus, and focus and focus and focus, right? So if you start if you start getting distracted by being in 3 different countries when you're not ready to be in it, then you're going to get distracted, and I don't think you're going to succeed. Having said that, what you do need to do to expand, assuming that you've done your local market, right? So if you look at one of the companies that I'm indirectly involved in is Migo, which is a tech company that's now gone into Brazil. Now they've kind of worked out that they're pretty good in Nigeria and some of the other countries, but now they're looking at a market that is very similar and they can go. But I think the thing that they need most, not money, is actually access, right? So you need a partner, okay? So I would always say you cannot go into another market on your own. I mean, maybe if you're Facebook, you can, or Google, maybe you can, right? But I think in most cases, you want to go into another market with a local partner, both a financial partner, hopefully, and a actual partner who can actually help you navigate. Because doing business in Nigeria is very different from doing business in Brazil, right? I mean, forgetting the language barriers themselves, but just the nuances of doing business, right? We all know about the story about the Ford Pinto truck, right? I mean, it was, what Pinto means, right? In Brazil, it doesn't mean what we all think it means, right? So it's kind of those nuances that I think people need to be aware with. The 2 things I would say is, don't go until you're ready. And then second, if you do go, it's not capital. I think capital, you can get capital anywhere, right? If you're a good business, you can get capital, but actually it's building those relationships in country and having a good partner is, I think, the most important thing.
And Amoye, if I can, I'm sorry to interrupt, if I can jump on the back of Raj's answer, which I think is excellent. He talked about making sure that you're focused and making sure that you have a good contacts and you know what's happening in the countries you want to work in. So when I think of what role we play at the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, we help people connect the dots. So we're a Canadian Chamber of Commerce.
I was going to ask you that too.
Oh, yeah, so I was just itching. I just had to come and say it. So what he says is exactly correct. You cannot do this alone. We encourage collaboration and partnership globally. So it's important to be connected to an organization or a chamber like ours who can then connect you with the Lagos Chamber of Commerce or an organization in South Africa or in the Congo. We can connect you, and you shouldn't do this alone, exactly what Raj says. You need to have someone who can help guide you or connect you, like Jennifer is a lawyer here in Toronto. She can then connect you with colleagues or counterparts globally. So don't do this alone. We shouldn't do anything alone. We're global. We're global, so we should work together. And now during COVID, it's an email, it's the Zoom call. You're not alone. Get the support and help and encouragement you need, and then get the right contacts, and then go out there and flourish.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think you just really reiterated Raj's points well, which I took from, Raj and what you shared, that, expand, but you can't expand too quick sometimes. And you also have to think about, how do I dominate or best exhaust my presence in this current market before I try to go and conquer something else. And partnerships, relationships are absolutely critical to be able to emerge into another market and actually have a scalable impact. So Andrea, this question is next for you. So I'm wondering, what support can governments and institutions provide to startups looking beyond borders? So you mentioned connections, you've mentioned, referrals. What other tangible supports can sort of chambers and other regulatory organizations offer to businesses looking to gain access to other markets?
That answer became more abundantly clear once the pandemic hit. So I find that sometimes we don't know what we don't know. There are, like Raj said, if you need capital, there's capital out there. It's not as hard as we think. We just need to know how to find it. The government in Canada, for example, recently announced a $221 million fund to support Black entrepreneurs in Canada, which is historic and fantastic. So we encourage business organizations to reach out to us at the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. And as this information comes out, we will connect you. So we encourage, and we see this in the US. The US has money set aside for minority businesses to help them specifically during the pandemic. So it is out there. You just need to know where to find it and be connected to organizations that have either a seat at the table or access and can share that information to other organizations. There are other fantastic organizations that support, for example, Black female funders. There's an organization in Toronto called Black Female Funders that helps Black female entrepreneurs globally around the world. So just being in touch and connected to the right groups and organizations can help you connect the dots and find access to funding.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you is access is also another key thing that organizations such as your own really help to drive for upcoming founders and existing founders as well. Right. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think I want to hear a bit more from Jennifer. So in terms of structuring your business and designing your business, what does that look like on a level? So you're a startup founder. I actually consulted with a group of young entrepreneurs this week, and they're in the aerospace. They're playing in the aerospace industry and working on really cool procurement contracts with the federal government. And they have managed to, secure some really cool large size contracts out with companies in Europe. But what does that expansion look like? And if they should want to, go into other markets, how do they structure their business to become global, right? So it's not just, based in Canada, but have, opportunities or small contracts, but like become like this major conglomerate.
So thanks, Amoye. I think that starts with doing your homework and making sure that you're planning this out from the beginning. There's a lot of different corporate structures out there, and they've got a lot of different ramifications, probably too many for us to get into right now, but you'll want to be thinking about things like whether your organization is structured in such a way that you can take it global. And once you've got that sort of an idea worked out, then you're also going to want to make sure that whatever your product is, that your product is ready to go global as well. A lot of times we are dealing with licensing a backbone when we're dealing with technology. Do you have those sub-licensing rights? And can you bring that license into the jurisdictions that you're moving into? If you're dealing with open source, for example, then there's a whole other situation there where you may want to be looking at what the copyleft license is and whether you've got the ability to actually use it in the way that you want to be using it in the jurisdictions you want to use it in. The other thing to contemplate is whether your technology is regulated in certain areas. If you're in a fintech environment, you may need to look at what sort of regulations exist in the other jurisdictions so that you can be compliant right from the start. So there's a number of things that you're going to want to look at in terms of also now taxes is not my field of expertise, but you're also going to want to make sure that you're structured in such a way that if you move in somewhere, you've got the import export licenses that you need and looking at things like withholding tax. All of these things can be a surprise when you move into another jurisdiction, and not a welcome surprise. So by getting your ducks in a row early and by thinking global, even when you're local, you're going to be well ahead of the game once you're in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd love to just extend the question to you a bit, Raj. In your experience as someone that has consulted, dozens of businesses and seen startups from their inception to kind of execution and going to market, what are some common threads that you've seen in startups that have gone global versus those that have not been able to actually successfully make that transition? And so sort of what are the common threads, and also what are some kind of forewarnings that you would see as important for founders to consider before taking the leap?
So let me start first by just talking about kind of what I would say is the first things you have to do, right? So what Jennifer was talking about is actually some simple stuff, structure. What structure have you got? So if you're a company that's in Uganda or whatever it is, right? So having a Ugandan company, going to investors in the States or the UK or Asia and saying, would you like to invest in a Ugandan company? People just say, well, come and talk to me another time when you've got me into a company that's located in a jurisdiction that I'm more familiar with. So usually it's a Delaware C Corp or a UK company or a Mauritius company. That's the three property jurisdictions I see most. And so that's simple stuff, right? So you have a whole core structure with an opco structure in country. So that's simple. Then I think the other thing that I think, assuming that you've got that right, and also it depends on where your investors are. If you think most of your investors, so I've invested in Kuda Bank, which is a Nigerian fintech bank, but they're located in the UK. Now, why? Because they see UK as being a very regulated financial industry. So the investors are coming from there. There's a big tech scene here in financial services. So that's where they want to be. I think the other thing that you want to do is when you're looking at other markets is actually correlate what your market is to what the other market is. So are the sort of the bits and pieces that work for you in your market are also the same bits and pieces in broad terms in the other market, right? So you could actually find a country that's right next door. I mean, look at West Africa, where you have, Nigeria is very near to Cameroon, but Cameroon is a completely different. It's half francophone, etc. So you might not want to go from Nigeria to Cameroon. You might want to go from Nigeria to Kenya, for example, but it's on the other side of the continent, right? So I think actually doing that research and saying, actually, what have I got in my ecosystem that is going to be easily translatable into another ecosystem? I think that is kind of one of the first things that you need to think about. But I think the main thing is that the mindset needs to be right. So your mindset needs to be, I'm building this business today to not just solve a problem here, because this problem exists in X number of countries, right? So if I can solve this problem here and I've conquered my market and come back to my focus point, then I should be able to go into those other countries, and you got to choose them wisely and fix those problems there, subject to all the other things I said. And it's about also consumers, right? So consumers are always going to go for something that gives you the best value, right? So, I think sometimes people get too hung up with, I can't go into jurisdiction because it's a different language or a different culture, whatever. No, because at the end of the day, there are things that people are going to buy because they're a good product or a good service. And that should be the main thing you should do.
Right. So you certainly covered a lot there. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think the major takeaway that I got is really just when you're expanding your markets or you're looking at, a successful transition to another market, really think about an target audience in a sense, or your target market that sort of mirrors or best reflects the market you've been able to successfully capture in your specific region. So I think that's something that our entrepreneurs can consider. Like when you're thinking about your expansion, think about the cultural and social and financial norms that are prevalent where you are currently dominating or occupying. And then when you want to expand, look at, you know, what's a good reflection of you know, what you currently have. So that's very interesting, Raj. Thank you so much. Andrea, I'd love if you could add a bit more to that, like sort of success stories that you've kind of seen of founders and being able to kind of acclimate to a market and go ahead and transition to another one with ease, or maybe some stories of not so much success, but, you know, some key learnings that our entrepreneurs that are listening in on today could possibly learn from. I think you're on mute.
That's the tagline for 2020. I think you're on mute.
No, if you took snippets of everything Zoom related, can they hear me? Can they see that? Am I on mute? Yeah, I tell you, Zoom. So the answer is it hasn't always been at ease. It's a turbulent time, but you know, through challenge comes innovation and opportunity. So one story, for example, one of the members of the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce through the pandemic, you know, lost her job and needed to create something. So she started a new business, creating candles just for self-care and to feel good and to just, you know, be at peace. Her business has taken off. She cannot keep candles in stock, and her pop-up shop is completely sold out. She said her apartment is overflowing with candles when she's producing them because there's a need. So as Raj said, providing a solution for your consumers, there's a need. Everyone's looking for peace and tranquility and mental wellness. So that is an example of someone who's doing well. Another example of someone who's had to transition, one of our members ran a daycare. Previous to the pandemic, she had a storefront, commercial property, the children were coming in. Once the city of Toronto went on lockdown and things changed, she was not generating any revenue, she had to close. But because she is resilient, she just transitioned to working from home. Now she outsources daycare providers instead of having the children come to her. So it's about being nimble and about being agile and reaching out for help. So any of our members or non-members, we're happy to support with resources or information or just general promotion, email blasts, promoting you on social media, anything we can do to help you keep going, therefore helps the economy keep going. So it's up and down. I encourage everyone to be persistent and resilient and be open to change. You may have to change your business model. If you were doing everything, obviously restaurants, if you were, you know, dine in only, you need to know now it's curbside pickup or it's delivery, or maybe now you partner with a long-term care facility, or maybe you partner with someone who's taking care of children, or you partner with, you know, someone who's doing online personal training. Just collaborate and partner and be agile and be open to changing your business model.
Thank you so much. And I love that answer because, you know, as we've talked about quite extensively now, this season has created more entrepreneurs than ever, and people have had to pivot, and people have had to be, as you said, agile and adaptive and responsive, and, you know, just start to think, right? And think beyond sort of geographical boundaries. So I guess, Jennifer, my question to you would sort of be, you know, as we pivot and as we think through, you know, businesses, and we think through reaching to other markets and not just being essentially confined to, you know, geographical barriers, what are some of the risks and challenges that we have to think about on an IP or security or even cybersecurity level? Because that is something that, you know, we're seeing more of, even in the Canadian context, where CRA was hacked, Canadian Revenue Agency, and so people are kind of taking advantage of the desperation of others, or kind of, you know, doing bad things. And sort of, how does founders and entrepreneurs and institutions that work to support and protect, you know, this population of people, how do, you know, we protect against that? And what are some things that we can put in place because of this newfound high degree of risk in cybersecurity?
It's a tough one, and you're absolutely right. We are sitting at a time and a place where things are blowing up, particularly when it comes to cybersecurity. I was reading a stat just yesterday that said that ransomware reports, now this is just the reported ransomwares, are up 714% from this time last year. 714%. I mean, the idea that this is coming in, it's not just coming in, it's coming in hard and fast. So when it comes down to your organization and how you're going to structure your organization, you really want to think about data protection. Now it's got to be critical. I think about where you're housing your data, how you're housing your data, who you're sharing your data with, what partners, and how they're dealing with their data. And have reporting agreements, have cooperation agreements, have auditing agreements, all of these other things that are going to protect you if and when something happens. Because really, you can't just assume that it's not going to happen to you, because it is. It's not an if, it's a when. So get your ducks in a row, make sure you're prepared, and have a strategy for data breach protection, reporting, mitigation, response. I know those are a lot of words put together very quickly, but making sure that you are prepared is really the way that you're going to be able to bounce back, because that's pretty much the best you can do. You cannot assume that it will not happen, but what you can do is prepare yourself for if and when it does happen, and how you will respond.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I just asked the question around cybersecurity and data and risk because I'm a researcher, and I'm very much big on data and how, the impact of data can really impact and change things. So I think protecting that at all times and protecting the IP. So I don't quite see any questions from our audience, but I'll say at this time we welcome any questions or any ideas that you have floating that you'd like to ask one of our esteemed panelists. They're here, and these are experts that you will not probably get a direct response from right away. So I certainly encourage you to take the opportunity to throw out some questions, and we can have some more dialogue. But I wanted to sort of ask another question as we wait to hear from some of our audience and our participants. And I think this might be something that all of you certainly can weigh in on. And it's this idea of actual money. So we're talking about going global and, working in these markets. And so I receive decks all the time. I'm a strategist, and in addition to being a researcher, and I have my own company called Pitch Better, where we do consulting for small businesses. And we have seen quite a number of tech-enabled businesses come into our pipeline and want to scale up, want to get investors, want to get introduction to investors. And so in the midst of building out our research, we're building out acceleration programming and incubators and all of these things. But we're having conversations with our entrepreneurs about what types of proposals they should be bringing forward, and in their proposals, how much should they be asking for, and in addition to that, what currency should they be asking for. So I recently got a proposal from a founder based in West Africa, and they were asking us for support, and I noted that they had their financial ask in Naira, which is the Nigerian currency. And so I'm a Canadian entrepreneur, and I, interface a lot with US and European and Canadian investors. So we're dealing with the euro, we're dealing with pounds, we're dealing with the US dollar, and sometimes not as often as you think, Canadian dollars. So what would you suggest for entrepreneurs in the ecosystem or that's tapped in today? How should they be pricing their pitch decks? And I see Raj laughing, so maybe this will go to you first, Raj.
I hate to give Uncle Sam and the greenback more credibility that they actually need, but unfortunately or fortunately, depending on, I would say that 90% of the pitch decks that I see, in fact, I would say 100% of the pitch decks that I see that are not UK listed company or UK based companies are in US dollars. I mean, local currency is just a non-starter, right? First of all, you got to figure out how you do it. I mean, the Naira keeps floating. I mean, moving, right? I mean, it's devalued about 30% in the last 6 months, and it's probably going to devalue further. So just getting that mental thing about how do you actually work out what this means in money today is actually in itself a challenge, right?
Yes.
Forgetting the fact that it's going to devalue. And so I would say like it's a non-starter from day one. Just say if you see a Naira or a CD or whatever, it's just not going to fly. You just got to change it. Even UK companies that are investing in Africa, when I get the pitch decks, it's in dollars, right? So
Right.
so dollar is the denomination, and I think, if you're a local investor, that's fine, right? But if you're looking for international investors, I mean, sorry for Canadian dollars, it just doesn't work.
Right. No, it's facts. And I tell our entrepreneurs all the time, like, be super mindful of your audience or who you're targeting, and always customize your pitch decks or your proposals to that audience. And that includes the currency, right?
Absolutely. And also, I mean, the other thing is that, the other thing people don't realize, that actually getting the money in is actually a painful process, right? So the KYC, the AML, all of that stuff, and people don't realize that actually that takes, even once you've agreed stuff, it takes a while to get money down. So in terms of your runway, you've got to not only allow time to pitch and raise money, but you also will allow time for money to get to your bank account, because there could be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks from when you start the KYC process to actually getting money in your bank account. So, don't make sure your runway actually takes that into account.
Definitely definitely. Your runway should always take that into account. And as far as your expenses too, like, even if you're, in all transparency, you should be putting your currency in the rate that you're speaking, at the rate that the investor will understand and be able to interpret. And there shouldn't be an assumption that they're going to be able to convert. And that's just the convenience and the accessibility piece. Like, when you're asking someone to invest in you, you want to be able to lay things out as clearly and as concisely as possible, because they're in a totally different region. They're looking at, what's relevant to them, what makes sense to them. And going back to Jennifer's point, you want to be able to do your research and understand, market wise, what are other companies in that specific region pricing things out as. And if you're trying to emerge onto that market, you want to be comparable or as close to them as possible. So I know that our panel is going to be wrapping up shortly, so I wanted to know if any of you had any closing remarks or anything that you felt that you should impart upon the audience today before we close out for the day. And Andrea, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. My closing words are simple. I just want everyone to know that they are not alone. There are going to be struggles, there's going to be challenges, and there are going to be reasons to celebrate, and you should certainly not do that alone. Join a local organization in your respective country. Reach out to your Board of Trade or your Chamber of Commerce for support to collaborate with other businesses. Know that there could be a sister business in another country that can work with you and help you expand into that market. So you are not alone. Reach out to help. Reach out for help.
And would love to hear from you, Jennifer.
I really just have to echo what Andrea has said. First of all, Andrea, if I ever go into another business, I want you on my side, because this is you're so encouraging and it's lovely to see. I want to say that, along the same lines as what Andrea has said, it really is important that you understand your IP strategy, and in order to make sure that you are doing things correctly, have local counsel. Have local counsel where you are, have local counsel where you're growing to, so that you can actually get the advice that you need when you need it, before you move in, before you run into any difficulties. So as part of your collaborations, as part of your finding groups to reach out to, find local counsel that is informed and that you can trust.
Thank you so much. And Raj, just to close things out.
Sure. Thank you very much. So fantastic, great responses. I agree with everything you say. Look, I was thinking about what our subject was, which is growing global, right? Today we are global, right? Look at where we are, Canada, and I'm sitting in London. The organizers, we've had people from all over the world. And the one thing the pandemic has shown us is that the world is actually even smaller than we thought it was, right? Yeah. And I think your ability to reach out, I've reached out to a bunch of people over the course of 2 days, and I'm going to give a big shout out for the organizers of this event. If we sort of big clap for them, for putting together. And I know there's some technical issues, but they pull it together, and great job. But what it shows is that we are even more connected today than we ever thought we were, and it's so easy to connect with people, and people are incredible. Look, I always think that as human beings, we are always open. I'm always open to having a conversation, right? You don't know where those conversations are going to go, and people can only say no, right? So, a couple of people reached out to me, and yeah, I'm going to have a chat with them, and maybe nothing will happen. Maybe something will happen. I think if you approach this with an open mind to say, let's have a chat, we may never come across each other again, but we're now connected. We understand what we're doing, and the thing I always do is that now I know, like some people, well, that they're in this space, and I'll think, well, hang on, I met someone there. Maybe I should, maybe they should talk. And I think the ability for us all to be connectors is probably the most fantastic thing that I get the most joy out of. And the world that we have today is such a connected world, and it's so easy to connect with people. Andrea, WhatsApp me on Sunday night saying, hey, are we doing this thing? What are we doing? Right. So, and now I'm talking to her, right? So now we're connected. And, if she comes to London, maybe we'll have a drink, or, and whatever, right? So I think, look, for me, going global is not just about entrepreneurs being global. We are all global today. And, we can connect with anyone, anywhere so easily. And we've got no excuse to not to try and push that conversation forwards, help people to grow, to develop. And I think events like this have such a big part to play in doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. I just have to snap for that, Raj. That was very, very amazing. I echo all of your sentiments. And I think, once again, thank you so much to the Texposition team for facilitating this and bringing us all together to have this very, very enriching conversation today. I feel super enriched. I just want to invite everybody at this time to check out the blackfemalefunders.com as well as blackchamber.ca. Jennifer, if you'd like to list the name of your company or your website, if you're comfortable. Raj, same thing. I'd like everyone to go ahead and follow these pages on social media, bookmark their websites, and make sure that you continuously seek out the information and edification that you need to grow and expand your businesses, and trust the experts that are here today. So thank you so much for having me, Texposition, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity and this incredible platform.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Amoye. That was
Have
wonderful.
a great Friday.
Yes, take care.
Happy Friday.
Andrea, nice meeting you.
Have a good weekend. Thank you for everything.
Yes, bye.